on the camera, there is no obligation whatsoever otherwise. And welcome to this session on Mental Health Awareness Week. So the session is called How to be Resilient and what are the practical tips and tools regarding uncertainty. So I have decided to actually create this 20 minutes presentation that I'm going to support with some visuals, with a presentation itself, just for us to reflect on what resilience really is. And I would like to give you 2 or 3 practical tools. Mental Health Awareness Week comes every year and with a different theme. So this year's theme is actually to move, how we can actually move to feel better. So the importance of physical health. But because physical health and mental health cannot go separate, I decided to talk about how we can be resilient. Of course, movement can help us be more resilient, but what other things are out there that could help us in our everyday? So let's discover them a little bit. All right, so I hope you can see my screen. So perhaps first about me, for those who don't know me, well, I know Simona and Anna know me, but perhaps for you more Bianca. My name is Alessandra. I'm originally Italian, though I have been living for almost 15 years in Zurich, Switzerland. And what I dedicate myself with my company, which is called FindYourWay Coaching, is to support companies in better mental well-being and communication practices. So you know how actually the way we communicate informs our mental well-being. I run a lot of group courses, group coaching, consultancy sessions, and also speeches on the topic of resilience. So one pillar is always the mental health, and the other pillar is communication best practice. I'm a big believer in assertive communication. I do many courses on assertive communication in company and also public from time to time. And what I notice is that when we put more boundaries and when we say a few no sometimes, this also means to be resilient. I'm going to explain you a little bit why in a second. Okay, so the first thing that I want to tell you and I want us to reflect on is what is resilience really? Everyone, this has become like a buzzword and everyone is talking about it. Okay, you need to be resilient. You need to put up with things that help you. But is this really what it means to be resilient? Or so it means that I have to accept or just kind of sustain whatever workload is thrown at me, whatever decision is thrown at me, or whatever thing that is coming that I might not have welcomed. Actually, resilience, the word comes from Latin, resilire. This means to bounce back. It means to our ability as human to adapt in the face of adversity. So life presents us with challenges of any kind, yes? And to be resilient means to still keep that well-being despite that situation. And it also means we must learn from the adversity that comes or the challenge that comes in. And also we must adapt because we are adaptable human beings. It's just that our brain doesn't like change so much. So of course we need a little bit of tools to know how to be resilient. Sometimes actually resilience also means to say no and to put boundaries, especially when we don't want something. So it not always means, okay, I need to power through. It means actually sometimes also to step back. And that's okay. Good to see you, Monica. So because resilience means also to step back and not only to actually absorb from outside, this also means that sometimes we have to place boundaries, which is not always easy, especially in times of uncertainty. And I feel that our current reality presents a lot of uncertainty every day and a lot of conflicts and things that sometimes we cannot control. So one of the first actually things that I would like to do today is to teach you how to be resilient by asking yourself the right questions. So if I tell you that there is something called self-coaching, yes, so the practice of self-helping ourselves. If you don't have a coach, or if you don't have a psychologist, who is the person that you would talk to for feeling better? Perhaps a friend, perhaps a relative or a colleague, but also is yourself. So we do have the tools within ourselves to be resilient. We just have to start using them. So one important self-coaching question is, in the midst of uncertainty or in the midst of my life challenge, what do I have that is safe for me? Where do I feel safe? So once again, if life is a mess, if there is chaos around us, if we have challenges, what is one thing going on for me that is good and that it makes me feel safe? This is an important self-question. You can ask this every day to yourself. You can journal it from time to time. If you are not familiar with journaling, but I think that most of you are, because I know most of the participants of today's session, the practice of journaling is to really put on paper how you feel and how you see the world in an attempt to grasp it better and also to release feelings. So can anyone tell me, perhaps, just a volunteer, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but it's nice if we interact a little bit. So in the midst of uncertainty, what do you have that is safe for you? Would anyone like to tell me? Or if you don't want to talk, you can also use the chat. That's another option.
I would say definitely my family. My family.
Your family. Great. Thank you. It makes you feel safe. Yes. So that's a pillar. That's a pillar. Thank you, Bianca, for sharing. What else? For example, for me, you know that in the midst of uncertainty, what I feel, when I feel safe is when I know I could sit for a moment and just breathe, and then going like with my mind to visualize one of my favorite places. That is back in Sicily, our grandfather place. So for me, that makes me safe. In the midst of challenges, sometimes I go to the place or I close my eyes, I breathe, and I remind myself, of a good time or just take the time for myself. Anyone else?
Yeah. So I would also add on the top of what you said. In my case, I just shift myself in the present moment and stay there.
Mm-hmm. And stay there.
Yeah.
Great. So to be able to be present. So the so-called mindfulness. Yeah. So
exactly.
be mindful of what we're doing every day. Yeah, this could be really safe, right?
Be mindful where I am at the moment right now.
Yes. Anna, actually, you give me a great tip, a great tie to what I'm saying afterwards. I would like to teach you an exercise that you can do on a piece of paper yourself every day or have it as a tool. And that's really good in times of uncertainty, but also for resilience. Do we focus on what we can control, or we are trying to control everything and then actually would be more important to let go? So this is a very cool exercise that is called the circle of control. I'm going to explain you really, really briefly, and then you can do on a piece of paper. Anyways, you are going to have this presentation, so you're going to have the exercise in PDF in case you don't want to write yourself. So you draw a circle and you start from the bottom. In the big circle is called the circle of concern. Every one of us might have a concern. Will I ever find a job? Will I ever make it as an entrepreneur? What if I lose my job? What if something happens again in the world and I cannot control it? Like could be a pandemic, or like could be, the climate change. There's just so many things that can be a concern. Just write it down, like the worst case scenario, with no censoring yourself. It's okay to feel fear. We are human in the end. And then you draw inside this big circle, you draw two smaller circles. The first one is the circle of influence. Yeah. It means, I have a little influence on this. Perhaps I can influence it a little bit. I can influence this concern, so I feel a little bit better, but I cannot fully control it. And finally, the last circle in which you can say, this I can really fully control, is the circle fully control. Yes. Let's take an example. Okay. So I give you a concern, and then I give you a little bit the question, what can I influence in that and what I can control? I see in the reality around me, many people losing their jobs. Yes. So I feel that there is a general uncertainty on a global level, but here in Switzerland, I feel so many people are really talking about how this is manifesting, right? In big technology companies and all this. So a concern that I might hear my clients say is, what if I lose my job? Yes. No one can tell us. We know in life our one thing which is constant is change. And even if our brain is allergic to it, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So what could we tell to ourselves if we are fearful of not finding a job? Of losing a job? What is the influence and what is the control?
I would say something what we can only influence, something what we only can control. This is our inner resources.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought, my personal
Mm-hmm.
perception, everything
Mm-hmm.
what is in the power of myself.
And how do I control it?
Sorry,
Anna, it kind of overlapped.
Mm.
It's great answer, but how do I control it? How do I control my emotion if I'm feeling fear? Yeah, what could I control of that emotion?
I would control my thoughts, because the thoughts, it's not the facts. This is something I created myself, and they are generate the emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So when I'm fearing that I might lose my job, I cannot really control the decision of the company of tomorrow,
Of
right?
course, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Exactly. But I can control my thoughts, perhaps not to go into that spiral and to think, okay, I'm influencing by doing my best. I can control how I present myself every day. I can influence a little bit my network. I can influence how I work to give my best so that this does not depend on me. But if it's a decision that is structural of the company, for example, I could then handle it and not feeling that my self-esteem goes down. Because sometimes when there is a lot of uncertainty, our response is also to say, perhaps I'm not really enough to be up for that challenge. Please never think that you are enough, that you are not enough for that challenge. We are. It's just that sometimes we do not really have tools, or those tools haven't been taught to us. So let's make another example. Who would like to share a concern, and we can support saying what we could influence or what we could control? What could be another concern? For example, health, and what if I'm not healthy, and then the future, and we don't know what we eat, and what about the climate, and what about, being sustainable in the everyday? So there is a concern regarding the world and regarding what is happening to it. What can we influence with this? Can we influence and control our health, what we eat or what we do, our behaviors?
Yeah, this is only what you can control, and the rest, they are out of the circle of our control. We cannot control what is going to be happen with the climate, how the climate is going to be changed.
Mm-hmm. But we can influence what
But
we
I can
do that has an
control
impact.
what I'm going to put it on my plate, if I'm going to take the green sausage, or if I'm going to cut the green cucumbers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And whatever is, in our power to then be mindful of how we treat ourselves and the world. So this exercise is really good for resilience, because it makes us reflect on what we can control and what we have to let go. Because sometimes we just have to let go and accept. Acceptance is a big pillar of resilience, because it makes us adapt and bounce back faster. And it's okay if we have different levels of resilience. We are different. It's our own personality, it's our background, how we grew up, how we see the world is going to inform how resilient you are. And that's okay. But those things can be built up. Let's move forward. What about reframing? Reframing is another great tool. In coaching is a great tool, and also in positive psychology, but it's also a tool that I think can make us really resilient every day. So what if a negative situation or an adversity could be reinterpreted and seen in a more positive way? We don't have to force the positive. Sometimes it's a crappy day and that's it. However, it's true that in many challenges, there could be one learning or one positive thing. For example, I remember, when I was fired from my job back in 2016, wow, for me, it was the end of the world. And I was like, okay, there is no way I can accept this. The company was my family. And then look where I am now. I created the company. Probably I wouldn't have started that very year if I hadn't been fired. So for me, the positive was that it pushed me out of my comfort zone. Of course, we might be able to see this only later. How can you reframe something that is challenging you? Would anyone like to share?
I would say looking on the things from different perspectives. It's up to
Yes.
you to make the choice. How do you like to see the situation?
Sure. So let's make a practical example. What if, something that was for us typical, like COVID? What was one of the perhaps positive thing or learning points, more than positive, perhaps? What was a learning point from you from the experience with COVID? Or any other very trying experience?
My learning was even the situation are very uncertain, and that was something what we have faced the first time in our life. I could turn that optionally in a way and open the new opportunity for me. So for me, it was the time when I also changed from the corporate work to my personal business. So for me, it was the time exactly when I could develop myself and look to the different direction, reflect where I have been and where I want to go.
Nice. So you were gifted with more time to understand what's the next thing.
Exactly. If I would put
Right.
myself to the crisis and only spinning around how bad we are going to all die tomorrow and things like this, it's happened, I would probably just put myself to the deep depression and create the mental crisis for myself and for my family environment.
Yes, yes. Wonderful. Thank you, Anna. Could we do another example of reframing? Anyone has something on the top of their mind?
I have something, Alessandra.
Great, Monica.
Related to the COVID, right? I mean, I'm going on the same thing.
Or to anything that you would like to.
Yeah. What I learning I learned during that period, staying at home. Professionally, I started to love working from home. So remote work is something that is suiting me very well. And it's at the time I discovered. And personally, I really started to enjoy little things of life. Like I started to cook more. I started to spend more time with my partner. So it was, there were good things in a very difficult situation. Yeah. So I really enjoyed actually.
Thank you. So that's reframing. See, to be able to look at the same picture, but putting really a new frame. That's a very good, together with the circle of control and with the self-coaching question. Then this is the third tool that I really encourage you to use for your own resilience and also in the face of uncertainty. So something else, very, very important, a sense of community. This is actually pillar of resilience. Probably number one. What do we mean with sense of community? It's not only to be surrounded by people. It doesn't only mean to network. It means that we feel we are supported. Do you know that when we feel supported, we are much better in our mental health, our immune system gets boosted, and we feel a sense of meaning. Also, when we are in a group, some neurochemicals gets released like oxytocin, yes, that's famous thing that is making us feeling a bond, yes, and belonging. The sense of belonging as human beings is important to bounce back from adversities. How do we foster a community? How do we do that if we feel sometimes isolated or lonely? A person could feel lonely even when we are accompanied. I think it's important to always mention, to ask ourselves, do I have somebody to talk to when I'm not feeling good? Who can support us in a non-judgmental way? Who is going to accept me as I am so that I don't have to make an effort to be liked? This is also what it is, a sense of community, to really feel that we belong. You know, I mentioned this book quite a lot. It's called Together, written by Vivek Murthy, a medical doctor, who discovered that if we are not feeling like we belong, or if we feel isolated, what happens is that on the body, the effect on the long term is the same thing as smoking 15 cigarettes. I was shocked when I heard it because I said there is no way the immune system could respond that way. It's actually true. So they did these trials with people who were feeling really lonely and their immune system was becoming very low. So really always think, how can I feel not lonely if you are feeling lonely, or if you already have a community, is this community making me thrive? Are they accepting me? Are they non-judgmental? Can I go to them if I need help? Do I dare to ask for help? To be resilient is also to be able to understand that sometimes we cannot do everything alone. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to say, I'm not okay. That's also the point of why we also do this in Mental Health Awareness Week, to become aware of the importance of asking for help. So community is the fourth tool that I want to give you. So I summarize one more time. We have the community as a tool, a sense of belonging. Then we have the circle of control. What can I control? What can I let go of? And then reframing. How could we put a new frame to the same situation, even if it's very negative? And then the first self-coaching question. Yes. What is safe in the midst of all this uncertainty? What is safe for me? What is a constant for me? And then don't forget about being kind to yourself. Yes. So I would like to do this exercise very, very quickly with you. So who knows improv theater? The power of yes and, to improvise, and continue a sentence. So it's a tool in which instead of saying, yes, I'm okay, but perhaps I'm not enough for that. Or, yeah, it's all good, but yeah, it's not perfect. Well, why don't we stop saying yes, but we say yes and? What if we say, okay, something positive, more constructive, even more than positive, it could be constructive. So whenever we are not so kind to ourselves and we have a negative self-talk, could we actually be kinder and say, stop to this negative self-talk? Yes, and. So let's make an example. And then I can ask any one of you to continue the sentence. So it could be negative self-talk such as, yes, I'm very good at my job, but I don't have 5,000 followers on Instagram or in the other platform, so I'm not sure I'm going to make it. How could transform that? Who would like to try? Instead of yes, but, yes, I'm good at my job, but, I don't have 5,000 followers. Could we transform in yes, and?
Yes, and I have 300 followers on Instagram or on LinkedIn, which is equal the size of the airplane.
I love it. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. I love it. Let's make another sentence. Does anyone have a sentence that maybe repeats in your mind a little bit of a negative self-talk and you are like, okay, stop. Now I would really like to yes end it. Does anyone have it? I can give you one. Yes, very good at my job. I look old for my age, so what if they don't want me in a company? Yes, I have plenty of experience, but there could be someone younger, and then, perhaps I stand no chance. Can you yes and me?
Maybe yes, and I can be a mentor to new people.
I love it, Bianca. Yes, and I can be a mentor. Yes. So you see how we are not forcing it it needs to be all happy and joyful. We are actually looking at what could be. We're also reframing in a way, but we're also being kind. The negative self-talk could be really tough when we have an adversity, and it can impede us to bounce back fast. So to be resilient. Resilience also means to look at the mirror and say, hey, I want to really make an effort to understand my value. I want to work on my self-esteem despite the adversities. There are many adversities which might make us think that we're not enough or that, I should be more resilient. But what is to be resilient? Yeah, it's all those things. It's work too. So please always remember that. And then, so this was exercise number 5. Now I have the very last one. I really love it. Perhaps you have seen it in one of my mental well-being webinars or in the mental spa. I really like the stress bucket. Yes, the stress bucket exercise is really good because it helps you manage your stress. When we are trying to be resilient, we always have to remind ourselves, once again, to be kind and do self-care. Imagine you have a bucket where the stress comes in every day. there's just so much challenge on top of challenge. And on top of that, there are things happening on a geopolitical level. How am I going to make it? And then we see that we start being stressed. So how can I empty the bucket? By using this little tap that is at the bottom. Comes out the stress. What is our strategy? So could anyone tell me your self-care strategy? What do? You can write in the chat, or you can tell me by unmuting yourself. I know, for example, I journal. This is also my lifesaver, but also is movement for sure, which is the topic of Mental Health Awareness Week. You exercise, yeah? Anna?
I always keep in my mind the sign of the stop.
Stop. Yeah.
Stop. It's exactly like the sign when you're driving the car. So when I identify the wandering mind, creating the sense of the anxiety or the worries, I visualize the stop signal.
Yes. Nice. I like it. Thank you, Anna. Like stop. Exactly. Is enough. Take a break. Yeah. Do breathing exercise too. Thank you, Bianca. Yes, the breathing and the exercise, they are in our body. They are tools which are always available. We just have to carve out that. Any last self-care routine or coping mechanism that you would like to share with the group? Yes, I take breaks and relax, going in nature. Yes, the natural healing power of nature. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to stop sharing now. So those were my 6 tools to cope with resilience and in times of uncertainty. This is going to be also sent to you. And thank you so much for being part of this session. I don't know if they're going to actually close right on time and then I lose you. So in case I already say goodbye and thank you so much, but would anyone like to ask a question before we leave you? Anyways, here is my email address, which most of you have, but just in case for a couple of people that I don't know, reach out, Alessandra, Patti on LinkedIn, and FindYourWay.company if you have any questions on resilience, or if there's anything that you are not thinking of right now, and then it comes later, I'm there. So thank you for this half an hour together, and I hope you use the tips right today.
Thank you, Alessandra.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.